Welcome back, We Know Texas Vino listeners. What did you think about part one? Before we continue on with part two of Don and Alphonse, I wanted to bring y'all some exciting news. We Know Texas Vino and crew will be at Grape Fest, broadcasting live and talking to people about Texas wines. And to kick off this event, September 11th at 1 p.m. at Messina Hoff, we will be doing a special episode featuring Paul Bonnaringo from Messina Hoff and Dean Hewitson from Australia's Hewitson Wines. You don't want to miss this. Then on September the 12th to the 15th, we'll be set up across from the People's Choice tent to talk to people going in and out of the Texas Wine Competition and getting to know people's reactions. So come by and see us. Now, on with part two with Don and Alphonse. Cheers.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the main event. Are you ready to pop your cork? In the left corner at 6'4", 242 pounds, with a record of 45-0, the undisputed.
Hey, Michael.
Hey, Will.
Hey, how many bottles of wine have you had?
Well, Will, it's not the wine. I'm just so excited about the podcast.
Yeah, I am too. But this is not a boxing match. This is We Know Texas Vino.
Salute.
So, how did you end up in the Mason County area?
So, I'm all over the state. Each county in the state usually has a compiled soil survey map describing the soils, and so I was getting these soil survey maps, but Mason didn't have one, and I kept driving through Mason.
Okay.
Because there was a great coffee shop on the square, and I'd stop, have coffee, and continue on. But I came through when the farmers had started tilling their soils. And I saw the soil on this farm on Highway 87, and I pulled off side of the road. I trespassed, yes. I crawled over the fence.
He's taking a play from your book there.
I crawled over the fence, and actually this turned out to be Drew Tallent's property.
Oh.
And Drew Talent is the largest grape grower in Mason County.
Okay.
It took him a while to come along and realize that this was probably a good crop to be doing.
Right.
But I crawled over his fence and got my hands in the soil, and I thought, this is it. This is the place.
Yeah.
And a few days later, I show up on Alphonse's doorstep.
Yeah.
A broker had told me, well, there's this new fella who just planted a vineyard. And I said, really? And yeah, you should go talk with him. So I couldn't find his phone number or get someone to give it to me. So I just drove out here thinking the worst he could do is
Shoot you?
Yeah, shoot. No, I figured he'd chase me off the land with a shotgun.
Invited him to have a meal and have a drink.
Yeah, so I did. I knocked on their door, and Alphonse answered and said, come on in. And Martha fixed me dinner, and we spent a few hours talking about growing grapes.
Wow.
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm going to make an assumption here. Y'all are actually pretty close friends, obviously.
Yeah.
Oh, by far.
Okay, and y'all could tell that just by the way y'all are interacting right here, and excuse me, and one of the things that I love about the Texas wine industry is you've got really close friends and a lot of family members here. And in this family members, I don't mean like blood family members. I'm talking about, you're the next winery down. You're helping them and their family,
Right.
But I'd really love the closest, and that will explain why you said, hey, we should do this over here with Alphonse.
Yeah.
Now this explains everything. I just thought you was...
Oh, no.
You thought it was convenience.
Yes. I thought we were just in a place.
No, the relationship is genuine, and the true friendship in consulting and pestering each other that you leave no page unturned is genuine, and we both have the right to say, hey, mother, check yourself,
Oh, man, that's funny.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, for real.
And I really do love what y'all have got there, because you're obviously y'all some brothers from another mother.
Oh yeah.
And it just.
Well, let me say it to you and everybody out there. And I take this pause because Donald is definitely a true friend. And right now, as we speak, I'm not at the funeral of my first best friend because I his wife understood that I'd made this commitment to you today. Okay. And but I sent them a dissertation. And what I'm getting at the long way around, a true friend tells you exactly what the facts are and what he or she thinks. And if it's always pleasant to your ears, they bullshitting you.
Right.
Okay?
Yeah.
And we have this relationship that we want the truth, and each one of us has to, if something that the other one's not totally accepting at the moment, to say, okay, here's the facts. You go look this up, and vice versa. Mm-hmm. And once you get the facts, then we both are relieved, because neither one of us wants the other one to fail.
Right.
See, it's because critiquing in order to be the best or continue to strive to be the best. And if you can't take that type of relationship where somebody's telling you doing something wrong, or you can't justify what you're doing, you're bullshitting yourself.
Right. And that's something we have a big problem with. And I'm not trying to get into this. Socially bad. That's the problem we have nowadays with our youth nowadays. If you say something bad, to them, whether it's a critique or whatever, or a constructive criticism, they get upset about it, and friendships are just over just a small disagreement. We got to get some thick skin here, and like a grape, thicker the skin, the better the grape.
Yeah.
I like that analogy. That's really good.
I'm a really great analogy person.
Yeah.
I mean, I make all kinds of analogy. Ask my therapist.
You got a lovely therapist, man. That's indeed.
Oh, no, I'm talking about my real therapist. The one that I pay monthly.
Hey.
I'll give you an example. Alphonse has incorporated a unique winemaking technique in his winemaking process for his white wines. And it just sent me off the edge the first time I saw it.
I like this because he's over here smiling big. Big old Texas grin over here.
I came in and he had just harvested some. You had Muscat Canelli, Muscat Jayo, Chardonnay, all in one tank, and he had that Perkin, and I said, let me check the fermentation. So I stuck my head over the top, and there was a cap and skins and seeds on his white wine.
Okay.
So
rulemaking 101.
In the United States, everybody takes when they're making a white wine, they take the must off and just leave the juice.
Right.
And ferment the juice.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
Because with white wines, you're finding some crispness, and you want to remove the tannin.
I'm taking notes here.
And and you want purity of fruit, and you generally don't ferment on the skins and seeds.
Right.
So I'm looking at it and I'm thinking, Alphonse? And he said,
what the hell are you doing?
Yeah, right. He said, yes, Donald. Because he knew I was coming. And I said,
you did that on purpose, too, didn't you?
Yeah. I said, Alphonse, did you forget to press the skins away from the juice? And he said, no, I just think this is the way it should be. It felt right. And I said, oh, well, okay. It'd be really smart of you to chill this a little cooler and do a colder fermentation so you won't extract as much seed and tannin from the seed. And he said, well, okay, I'll do that.
I'll do it. Turn the vat up down a little bit.
And I said, Alphonse, this process is fraught with peril. You know that, don't you? And he said, And I went away thinking to myself, I got to do some research and find out how to take green color and tannin out of a white wine later because I know we're going to have to fix this wine. But when it was finished and he pressed it off, light pressing, at my insistence, it was just unbelievably beautiful. Really? And it turned out to be an extraordinary wine, and Alphonse repeats that on a regular basis. The tannin extraction helps with the aging of the white wine.
Really?
Yes.
And it does give you this tiny little tannic grip. And it's tiny. He's not pressing those grapes and getting as much tannin as he can. But then I went to a TechSom conference. And one of the sessions was a group of white winemakers from New Zealand talking about fermenting on the skins. So when I came back, I felt much better.
So in other words, you're the grandfather of not pressing whites.
Well,
or the father.
The modern day grandfather. Okay,
right.
My thing was this, and. With all due respect to Don, definitely, but even those prior, Californians had come in and they've gotten snooty and how they go about doing that and this, that, and the other. And what's interested me was the fact that there are wines that are still being found that were created 200 years ago, 100 years ago or better, and that are drinkable. I bet you 2,000 $2 bills that nobody back in the days of Pompeii when they were making and fermenting wine took it off the skins.
There's a good change. You're probably right on that.
Okay.
But at the same time, if you look, you don't find a lot of old 100-year-old, 200-year-old white wines.
You don't, but you'll find mine.
We're going to have an apocalypse in 3,000 years from now. I can't find any wine, but also we come across his. We're like, oh my gosh, look at this wine right here.
And that's my goal. That's my goal. I had one close friend that the second white wine that I created, which was a Perseverance. We started with the Gotus de Oro and then the Perseverance. And he popped open a bottle, which was 5 years ago? No, better than 5.
Oh, yeah.
2006. 2016. Okay. And white wine. And he says, damn, still good, man. I said, okay, fine. Yeah, okay. Yeah, all right.
See, this is why this is why I do this podcast. I like to learn from other people who have gone down the path. And I want to be that type of winemaker that uses traditional but unorthodox methods, because there's some good wines out there that are just not made by your traditional ways anymore. And throwing a little unorthodox, leaving the skins on your whites, makes a difference. And honestly, I've never thought about that. Anytime that I've talked about from people who don't know anything about wine education about winemaking process, the first thing we say is you make you crush your whites and you pull the skins. And now that you've said that, now you told me that, I've put that in my Rolodex back in the back of my head. I've made some notes, and I'm going to try it. I want to see what happens.
Yeah, you should.
What's the worst that could happen? It's undrinkable, it turns to vinegar. It could be fixed, or it mix it with something else.
Or you distill it.
Yeah. I can't do that in my house. So that's very fascinating.
Oh, yes, you can.
I think there's some laws that's called moonshine. So is it a true white then? Because if you left it on the skins, it's true white. It doesn't have like a green tint or anything like that at all?
No green tints. All the flavors and character and components you'd expect out of a white wine.
Really?
With with more structure.
That's fascinating.
They're pretty impressive. You should taste through some Alphonse's whites
because we will.
I think everyone that you've got now went through that process.
Yes, everyone.
Pretty impressive. I kind of want to make a point about the Hickory Sands District.
Go around.
We are this area, the plots of land that can be used for grape growing are not 2,000 acres worth of contiguous property.
Right.
They're small areas, 45 acres here, 100 acres here. 20 acres is for sale now with a good field in it, probably a 15-acre field.
Right.
So they're small vineyards, and they lend themselves to small family operations.
Okay.
And that's what the wineries here are. They're small family operations.
Yep.
And because of that, we can experiment. I know you're going to talk with Dan McLaughlin. He's doing some wonderful experiments with his wine production and experiments in his vineyard. Alphonse is doing his at Sandstone Cellars, where Scott Halpert and Manny Solario own that. They're my neighbors. And they bought a building for the parking space for the restaurant, which they have on the square. And we were sitting around drinking wine, kind of trying to figure out what to do with that building. And I said, we can do a little boutique winery. And that's how the first winery in the Hickory Sands Mason got started.
Interesting.
Us drinking and figuring out what to do. So we took the building. There's 300 square feet of production space, 300 square feet of retail space, and that's the winery.
Nice.
And they've since expanded with a wine bar next door. But we intended to do small production, only fruit from the Hickory Sands District, which we've done, except one year we had no grapes, so we bought some apples from an orchard up in North Texas and made a fortified cider. But other than that, we have, at Sandstone Cellars, we made wines and still make wines that are only local fruit. And the second important thing is I said, let's not do any blending techniques that are customary. So, we don't want a Rhone style.
Right.
We don't want, a Sangiovese style blend. So
I might be rubbing off on this ass.
I've been waiting for you to say something. I've been sitting here watching you with my eyes. Like, come on, say it.
So we decided on the label every year. Every wine's going to be different. It's not going to be the same blend from year to year to year. So we just numbered the wines because we didn't want to have to come up with a different proprietary name every year. So we just numbered the wines, and we put the blend and percentages of grape varieties on the front label, like Ridge Winery does when Paul Draper was the winemaker there. He's one of my winemaking heroes. And so every year we have a different blend. It's a wine that's kind of hard to understand for people,
Right.
Because there's when you say, I want a Chateauneuf de Pape, there's
I'm sorry, every time I hear that name, it just makes me want to smile.
I know. I know.
Chateauneuf de
Yes,
Pape.
I know. There are those words.
Oh, hell, he pronounces them well. Every syllable, that's that.
I have a hard time just saying chateauneuf.
Yes. And the word flocculate. That's one of my favorite words.
Sounds like you're passing gas.
It does. Yes, right.
Sorry.
Yeah, you won't catch a damn raider taking that.
So anyway, every year we made or make a wine that is a different blend. But we've got the grape varieties on the front label so that people will understand. This may be challenging to your experience.
Right.
But the production is 500 cases a year or less. So,
and you know, I'm glad you're talking about that, because this is something I want to bring up to both of y'all. And,
Sure.
and because I think this is very crucial, because we obviously we're both Texans, or all
Right.
three Texans.
Right.
Very proud of our
Hell
Texas. You know, this question came up.
Okay.
What roles do you think Texas wines will play in the national and international stage in the coming years?
Wow.
I mean, it's
Well,
a
you
pretty
know,
serious question there, because
You know, what's interesting is here's the first thing that comes to mind. There was a time 20 years ago, 15 years ago, maybe even 10, no more than 10 back, that Texas wineries were going out of state to international competitions, New York, California, rushing to go there. Now, the Houston competition, other states and countries are rushing to come to Houston.
right.
So it's letting me know that, okay, let's go to Texas. And they wouldn't be coming here if, I think they initially coming to think that they could actually win. Now they're knowing that they can't send anything here, and that Texas wineries are winning, and not just here, but New York and San Francisco. So what I'm saying the long way around, this is definitely one of the three competitions that wineries from around the world want to be a part of. Okay. And so it is now important to the others to say, hey, we went to Texas and we won something.
Right.
I think about a couple of things come to mind when say Texas. I got stuck in Paris once overnight.
what was her name?
And how much was it?
And take the fifth. And what was interesting, when I was walking through the airport,
It was Lily, wasn't it?
You're about to get him in trouble. Man, you're about to get him in so much trouble.
you know.
And I'm going to have to edit this down, you know.
You know, all of a sudden, I noticed everybody was standing still.
Okay.
I said, except for me. And I said, what the hell is going on? Something happened nationally? I got to the next monitor and look up. Everybody had froze to look at Dallas,
Okay.
the series. Who killed J.R.? Okay.
Oh, my
JR.
Oh, my
Okay.
gosh.
Everybody in the airport had stopped. So I said, you know, Texas has that effect. And then when I got to Sierra Leone, that dinner that next day was one of the first questions asked me was, do you have a Cadillac with Longhorns on the front? So, you know, so it's interesting that, yeah, you know, the effect that we have on the rest of the world, the planet, is interesting. So Texas does play a great role. It's beginning to play a great role in competition and awareness. And as far as I'm concerned, I'm not trying to never wanted to be the biggest of this, that, and the other, but I have a goal that damn Donald is peeked over my shoulders, and you know, and but to become this particular sort of hidden boutique winery that we hadn't been doing any marketing, that the word, thanks to a select few, are beginning to say, hey, here's somewhere that you need to stop at and shock the individuals in more ways than one.
Right.
That we're not just making wine, but we're creating wines of quality. As I laid it to a couple of weeks ago, with Don being consistent and pestering me and sending something off. When I pause, most of the time, 90% of the time, it's okay. And I send it and continue to send it after it's been bottled within 30 days or 60 days, and see what type of award we're going to get, because if we get an award, we're not getting an award within 90 days of it being bottled. It can't do anything but improve.
Right.
So I'm not upset if we get a bronze or if we get a silver, and at times we've gotten a gold, because a bronze or silver means, to me, it's going to improve in the next medal. Now, there's a youngster that just walked in over there in that green shirt. He gave me a challenge right at 4 years ago, when he asked, what do you think about wines being made in whiskey barrels? I flinched. And he said, you're not smiling. I say, well, Brandon, I think it's something that California came up with to mask the smoke that went across the forest fires, and to take care of, some grapes to survive, he says. And I said, if I'm going to do it, it's not going to be an $18 or $30 bottle of wine.
Right.
He says, how much wine can I buy from you? And I had to pause, because he and his mom own a construction company in Austin, and they foundations for homes. We could buy everything on the damn shelf. I said, where is he going with this? He said, how much can I come in here and walk in and buy? I say, well, the feds allow you to purchase 50 gallons, unbottled, unlabeled, straight out the vat. You got a 50-gallon limit.
Right.
He says, I want you to make some wine using whiskey barrels. I say, it ain't going to be cheap. So, in short, we made it. It was a limited production of 80 cases the first time, 20 for him, 20 for his mom, and he asked if we were going to make some for ourselves, and we did, and we sold out within 90 to 120 days.
Wow.
Those 80-some cases, he asked me to do it again, and he only wanted to take 22 cases for himself, and I said, I'll still make the 80. We sold out within 120 days. I decided to add on and ask wine critics around and judges around the state what they thought about making wines using whiskey barrels, and they all flinched. They all flinched.
Yeah.
Well, this year I decided to send it in, the third production, and along with the new Patience. This wine made in the whiskey barrel is named Damn Ambition, because I thought about him being ambitious. And then when I let his mom come in and taste, and he and her girlfriends started tasting the way that I went about creating this. Hey, darling. The young lady passed by, I was smiling at her. Shit. Yes, indeed. And his mom tasted, went about tasting, her and her girlfriends, when they finished the blending that I'd done, they said, damn. So I named it Damn Ambition. Well, this particular one, he says, send it. I say, well, they don't like judging, on this side. And I was sending the Patience. I sent the two wines in November, and I didn't hear from them. I say, well, first time, the streak is over. Well, I get an email in January, or you come into the wine event and the wine this, that, and the other, and blah, 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 at the Houston Livestock Rodeo. Mm-hmm. And I responded to the email, you haven't told me that I want a damn thing. So I didn't get a response.
Mm-hmm.
Well, a month and a half ago, a lady calls and says, we sent you medals, and they came back to my wife. She answered the phone. She said, medals? She said, yeah. She said, well, why did they come back? She says, well, the address we used was the FM, and we sent it to the post office, and the post office sent it back. I said, she said, oh, the post office could have kept them. So Martha tells me, she said, we got some medals from the Houston Rodeo. I said, did they tell you for what? They said, no. So they sent them back, and we got them, I guess, about 10 days ago. I said, well, Martha, what did we get? She says, well, they didn't say this, but other than that, they say wines over $38 got a bronze, and wines over $50 got a silver. I say, well, that means the new patients got the bronze, and the Damn Ambition, the whiskey barrel,
Mm-hmm.
got the silver.
Wow.
Few months in bottle.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, then that makes me feel good about mine that I'm working on right now.
Yeah.
Because I've got a Tempranillo that I'm fixing to bottle when I get back.
Yeah.
And it's been aging in a so the distillery that I like to go to, it's a 100% Texas distillery, and they make their own old fashions, hand make their old fashions, and they put it in a 5-gallon barrel.
Oh, cool.
And then they age it in the barrel, and then they pull the cork off, and then they put a bourbon bottle on top of it, and they have a little spigot on the front, and they serve. Well, I got one of those barrels, and I put my Tempranillo into it. Mm-hmm. And I'm going to say, this is my first time to cuss on the show too, so I'm going to do this. It's going to be, we're doing it. We're all going to do it. So I'm going to say, damn. Uh-huh. It smells like a port, but it has every characteristics of a Tempranillo.
That's exciting.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to say this to you. Don't let it stay in there too long.
Oh, yeah. It's coming out next week.
Okay.
Yeah, it's coming out next week.
The key is to have, I don't know if I should say the key on damn radio. I
mean, if you want me to, you can say it, and then what I can do is I can beep it so nobody, instead of be there.
No, it's not about. It's about me sharing because there's so many whiskey wines out there that they didn't take the task to create it the way that I did.
Right.
So do I want to share the technique or do I not want to share the technique?
I'll tell you what, off the air, you can share it with me.
Yeah.
And then I'll take it to my grave.
Well, I'll share it with you.
See, that's what I'm talking about. Because, eventually.
I'm going to share it with you because you're a lady.
Okay. I'm gonna take us back to
back to the original question.
To predictions for the Texas wine industry. Thanks, Alphonse. That was just riveting.
Well, so I'll help you go back to that. Okay.
Yeah.
So I heard a rumor last year that William Chris went to Japan with a whole bunch of wine. And they had a festival over there in Japan. And Japan is really big on this whole Texas stuff.
Sure. And wine.
Yeah. And I heard that William Chris went over there with a whole bunch of wine. And they were the only booth that had a lot of people. And they sold out all their wines before the end of some sort of festival going over there. And I've heard rumors, again, that William Chris and I think 2 other wineries are actually working on trying to get Texas wine now in Japan.
That's pretty exciting.
That is freaking amazing.
Because they're getting it into a wine drinking market. There are collectors there and people who truly find wine.
Right.
So predictions. My mother was a genealogist. And in my lineage, in my heritage, I am related to Edgar Casey.
Okay.
Edgar Casey is a prophet in the United States known as the Sleeping Prophet. He made predictions. He's my 5th cousin, thrice removed.
Wow.
So every now and then, I make predictions.
Uh-oh. Is it called the modern day Nostradamus?
Yes, that's right.
Can we get you to wear big toga and all that kind of stuff?
Yes, you can get me to do that.
Can you have the skull in your hand?
I have a photo.
Okay.
The story for the longest time for the Texas wine industry was, can they make good wine in Texas?
Mm-hmm.
That's no longer the story.
Right.
We have had sufficient third-party validation, winning medals, wine writers, Sandstone Cellars. We were included in Robert Parker's wine guide that he publishes. I think we were in the 7th wine guide.
Okay.
As one of 6 Texas wineries you needed to visit
Right.
because of some wine that we had sent them to review. So Texas wines have lots of validation for its quality. So
Yes.
the story is no longer, can Texas make good wine?
Right.
So that's gone. Now the big issue is, can Texas make enough wine to distribute outside of Texas? And the answer to that right now is no. And getting that kind of production means large wineries, wineries that are going to have a sufficient production capacity
Right.
that will require distribution outside of the state of Texas. Because right now, 95% of the wine grown and made in Texas is sold in Texas.
Right.
The other way to
Oops.
hey, keep your hands off that mic.
Blitz.
Audible.
So if we, in the near term and midterm, I think we're not going to, as an industry, be able to distribute much wine outside of Texas. So Texans are going to know about it. We will hit national media, and the nation will know about it, but nobody's going to be able to get it.
Right.
So the challenge is to make consumers, or to encourage consumers outside of the state of Texas to seek out our wines, which means order it, have it delivered to them. And I think that's where marketing effort should be for most wineries in Texas.
Are you reading my questions over here?
No.
Because that's literally like the
But
next...
as you can see, I thought about this.
Oh, yes. And Texas wine and marketing outside of the state, people still, when they go to a restaurant, they won't, let's just say in Texas, okay, people still, when they go to a restaurant, they still want California wines.
Yeah, sure.
Because Texas wines are not in a lot of restaurants. Now, when you get into the regions, or let's just call them the AVAs, okay?
Yeah, sure.
You'll find more Texas wines in those areas than you will California wines. I won't mention the names or anything like that. We were at a wine bar last night.
Go ahead, mention them. Mention them.
Oh.
You know you want to say it.
I do, but I mean, we kind of, I'm not trying to badmouth people. Everybody's out there to make their money.
Right.
But there's a winery I went to downtown Fredericksburg. A friend had asked me to stop and get a bottle of specific wine for them there because, she didn't know what the name of it was. And so I went in there and I talked to the gentleman, and I was kind of turned a little bit to the side so you couldn't see my shirt because I was wearing my logo shirt. And I asked him, I said, what kind of wines y'all have in here? And he says, I got California, I got Italian, I got French, I got New Zealand. I mean, he started naming all these other countries. And I said, but you're right in the middle of the heart of Texas, hill country, with all the best wines around here. And he goes, yeah, about that. Texas wines are good, but we think we need to bring in some other stuff so people can taste other stuff elsewhere. And I was like, but you've got over 200 wineries right here that you can get just about anything here. Why don't you do that? And then he goes, the next excuse he gave me, he goes, well, the last time we did that, we had a squabble between 2 different wineries because we had one and we made a deal with that one and didn't make it the deal for this other one. And I was like, well, there's your problem. You made a deal for one person, you can't uphold it in another one. He tried to make excuses why he wasn't having Texas wine. I think myself is he's tried Texas wine, and because he literally told me he was from Napa Valley.
Yeah.
And
Snobbish.
yeah, exactly. The one thing that I tell people all the time is you got to forget where you came from. Like when you drink wine, you got to figure where you came from because your palate is made and designed for that region.
Right.
Yeah.
So if you're born and raised in California, you're born and raised in Washington, wherever, you have to forget what you had because everything's going to be different. In fact, actually, one of my good friends who's from California came here and ate Mexican food, and he said he hated it. And I said, why? He goes, because it's not California. I said, no kidding, it's Tex-Mex.
Yeah.
So you have to forget, what your palate says, and you have to be open-minded.
Well, you have to really adjust to the region. If you think you want something that's from California, you need to keep your dairy in California, and eat that in California. It's like you want one of those lobsters from Maine, and then you go to come on down and go to Arizona. It ain't gonna happen.
Yeah, or you can get it. It's just not going to taste the same.
No, it ain't gonna taste. The chef is not going to prepare it the same way.
Right.
No.
Yep.
I think that increased AVAs in Texas will aid in distribution outside of the state.
I think you're right on that.
Like the Hickory Sands District.
When?
We are
Not if, when.
we are when. The Hickory Sands District AVA, the wineries are all making wine exclusively from fruit in the Hickory Sands District AVA. And there are some larger wineries that are giving credence to the Hickory Sands fruit and making vineyard designated wine, like Becker makes vineyard designated wine from Drew Talent's vineyard. Hopefully, we are going to promote and the Hickory Sands District AVA nationally, so that we will be recognized as a wine region to seek.
Elite.
I like that word.
Elite, yes.
Yeah.
And I think that's going to happen more, and I think you will see in the future, near future to mid future, of the Texas wine industry, a lot more AVAs developing. There are 8 now. There are only 273 AVAs in the United States. So this, and the first one was designated in 1980. So AVAs are kind of a new thing for the U.S. wine industry. But I think as we get more AVAs and the wineries start within those AVAs start respecting their AVAs and making wines only with
Careful.
It's a black one too.
Of course. Hey, by the way, we're talking about a wasp that landed on my shoulder.
And it was a big one. Too.
And it was a big one. It was a big black one.
By the way, folks, we have not had one drop of wine sold.
Hey, not yet.
So I think that's going to be important in the future for Texas, is get the wineries so that we really understand what the terroir is for the Hickory Sands District, the example. But for Mesilla Valley, and there will be some I'm hoping there are quite a few new AVAs in the queue, but the process takes a long time. For the Hickory Sands District, it's almost a year and a half since
the application.
Since the application was went through its first approval.
Right.
And this process with the TTB, Tax and Trade Bureau, can take up to 3 years or so.
Wow.
But we're a year and a half down, so
you're almost there.
Yeah, almost there.
They're waiting to see if there's anybody that's going to complain. And I mean, if it's going to be interesting, as I pause and stammer to a degree about individuals complaining. It might be somebody within the Llano Uplift, hopefully not, just because they're not, the hickory sand doesn't extend over to them. But
but just listen. If you complain, Alphonse has skills. He knows he will find you.
Hey, for real.
So you're kind of like the Liam Nelson, huh?
Hey.
Well, so what would they complain about? I mean, like literally, what is there to complain about? You're making an AVA. You're trying to distinguish yourself as a different terroir in the region. So what is there to complain about? I mean, you're going to complain because the sky's bluer over here, or what?
Yeah, well, there's always one or two that are jealous. Jealousy's been a part of this world for a long time.
Yeah, but I mean, there's literally, and that's why when you say complain, and I actually read that online and complain, I'm like, what is there to complain about? You're just trying to designate something.
No, in fact, we're trying to enhance the industry more, and the individuals don't see that in creating this AVA within an AVA within an AVA, it's going to create more traffic and curiosity, and individuals will stop along the way and say, okay, taste this, I can taste this. Oh, this is a little different. Oh, it has a different twist. Oh, yeah, wow, okay.
Yeah.
Well, it's so...
by the way, the Napa Valley, which is probably the best known AVA in the United States, has...
Rutherford.
16 sub-appellations.
16?
Wow. So they have pretty much identified very, very specific terroirs within the Napa Valley. I think we will see the Texas Hill Country AVA being segmented with sub-AVAs. And the Texas Hill Country AVA may have less market impact than the sub-AVA sometime in the future. There'll be that kind of change. Because there's in the Hickory Sands District, maybe 2,000 acres of plantable vineyard land.
Right.
So, it's finite. It'll get full, and hopefully it'll get full of lots of family farms and wineries.
The right people.
Yeah.
You want the right folks moving in.
Oh, listen to you, Mr. Black Man. The right folks moving in.
Wow.
I
the king coming out now.
I already was a part of a meeting 2 years ago or 3 years ago in Mason County. That individuals wanted to bring in someone from California okay, on that side. I mean, hell, I don't need a damn nanny from California to come.
So, that's a really, really good topic right there.
Yeah.
We won't name the wineries, so that way it doesn't single out one particular one, but what are your feelings about the California wineries now coming to Texas? And I'm going to say this. A couple of people pointed this out, and it maybe kind of changed my mind a little bit. I didn't say a lot. I just said a little bit because, they're coming in here. They're still selling their California wine, but they're not supporting the Texas wine industry.
Yeah, right.
But the one thing that I was told that is that they are coming in here because they're jealous of our AVAs. They're jealous of our soil, and they can't get our soil in California, obviously, and that's why they're coming over here. What are your thoughts about California wineries coming over here now?
It's difficult to grow grapes in Texas.
Yes,
it's a lot more difficult than California. There was a grower, and the winery that invested in 200 acres west of Mason County and Menard many years ago, put in 200 acres of vines. It was Fess Parker who bought the property.
Okay.
And then he sent his
compadre.
Management team that he hires out here to plant and grow. And they had the most difficult time using California growing methods
right.
in Texas,
Yep.
because we're unique, and there's a uniqueness from terroir to terroir to terroir.
Correct.
And they ended up quitting and pulling it all out and leaving.
Wow.
So that shows you.
You
It's difficult to repeat California
Right.
here. As far as the wineries, I understand the Highway 290 corridor in Fredericksburg is a fast-growing area. It's a great market for tourists,
Yep.
and most importantly for boutique wineries, is you need tasting room sales
Right.
in order to stay in business.
Correct.
You can't give a cut to a distributor, and you can't give a cut to a retailer.
Right.
Those tasting room sales are extraordinarily important, and they want to join in with that. However, Texas consumers are going to, I can't wait to see if their business model works with California wine. I'm glad they're investing.
Right.
That's great. There's going to be a facility there for some time in the future for Texas winemakers to make Texas wine.
He's fidgeting over here, so he's got some.
Yeah.
No.
Have at it, Alphonse. I think A.J. Foyt has a good marketing draw. He's, A.J. Foyt's put his California winery here in Texas. He's put some automobiles.
But A.J. Ford was out of Houston.
Yeah,
so he came
lived
back.
in Houston.
Yeah, and and et cetera. But
it's California wine, but it's an A.J. Foyt light museum.
Right.
And I want to go see his cars. And I may drink a glass of wine.
Okay, well, I was going to say, you said cars, and then when you said wine, I was like, okay, well, never mind then.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Wow, Don was nice and articulate with that. I'm a Texan that ended up playing for a California team that was different from the rest of California.
Yeah.
And the other part of the National Football League. So my feelings in reference to Californians coming and bringing their wares from California to sell in Texas. I'm going to beep out the highly descriptive adjectives,
That's fine.
but I don't like it. I don't
That
like
wasn't
it.
a beat there, folks. That was him actually muffling his own self.
Okay. When you come into a neighborhood, then you should adjust to the neighborhood. You've taken time to research and you want to live there, and so you come in and you adapt to the neighborhood. You don't come in and to change the damn neighborhood.
Yeah,
I like that.
I don't think the California product is going to last in their business model. I think eventually they're going to have to be producing Texas wine.
Well, what just hit me and is that maybe a third or fourth of the tourists that are coming to Fredericksburg now are from other states and out of Austin, from other places, and maybe that's where a lot of the tourists is coming from. But then there were tourists coming to Fredericksburg initially before the wineries, so Fredericksburg has a draw, an attraction.
Yep.
My thing is, if you came to Texas for a reason, and then if you are supportive of Texas, really, then you ought to somehow eventually get you some blue jeans.
Make sure they're heavily starched.
Okay, get some blue jeans.
Get that crease in there.
Get that crease in there.
Get your blue jeans and get you a pair of comfortable boots, and
They don't have to have spurs. You can have the boots without the spurs.
Or something, and you don't have to learn how to say y'all, but
no. But if you get the spurs, you're going to have a safe word.
I hear you. But come in and really try to put monies within the state.
Yes.
Okay, and not realistically bring products in where the money is going out of state.
Yes.
Or definitely have a Mexican standoff, 50-50 on that side.
Or a Texan-California standoff.
Yeah. Well, either all of the above.
Right. You made a really, really good point, and I've never really thought about this until you just brought this up. Let's use a neighborhood, which you just said. So you're, for example, I live in an older neighborhood that was built in the '60s.
Right.
Okay. So the houses are a little bit older. We're not following any kind of rules. We just got to follow those city rules and stuff like that. Now, let's say I decide to go buy a house, but I buy a house in the HOA area. Okay. So I go into that HOA area. I got to follow their rules. Now, I can't go in there and try to change those rules of that HOA because they've already been established.
That's correct.
And I agree with you on that. If you come in from any state or country.
Our country.
In fact, anything outside of Texas is a country anyway. So
that's right. You're right.
So if you come in, it's okay if you bring in your stuff and you share with everybody. It's okay. But understand that you need to abide by our rules and support our community and not try to change our community.
By far.
It's okay if you bring stuff in and share with everybody. But, come in and support, in this case here, our economy. Because Texas is a up-and-coming economy. In fact, I don't know who actually said this, but Texas wine industry is where California was in the 80s. Still very young, still trying to find our foothold.
Yeah, we are what we call ourselves an emerging wine region.
Yes.
Right.
We're still emerging. We're still experimenting.
Yes.
That we are. And, and I want to, continue to emerge. And I know growing grapes is tough. And but if you have it to a season where the weather has not been nice, I can see bringing in maybe some juice from elsewhere, depending on what's needed. But I think that realistically, if you're in Texas, there ought to be something that realistically is in your product line or selling line that says it's Texas wines. But that's the same way that I feel about the damn restaurants, and then the maitre d' will say, well, we order from the distributor and the distributor's bringing us this, that, and the other. Well, I feel the same way about the damn distributor. Okay, he needs to be putting a Texas product in there also.
Yep, and what they need to do is a lot of those distributors don't taste it. No. What they do is they get a big full check from the big wineries and say, I need you to put this in there, and they do it.
Right.
And fortunately, you made the comment earlier that a lot of these little boutique wineries, they don't have the money or the product to do that, and so it's hard to really push that. But you've got the other wineries like the William Chris, the Messina Hoffs, the Slate Theories. They've got the volume and stuff like that. And I think, and this is just my pure opinion, they should piggyback on top of them.
Well, those who want to be that vast and big and elaborate and go out there and can afford to the financial adjustment, go right on. I still go back to something that I said earlier. I'm not trying to be in everybody's grocery store or everybody's liquor store. We're making wine. So far, individuals that walk in here that say that I don't drink white wine leave out here with several bottles of white wine. I simply say to them that, don't put us in the book same cover as everybody else.
Yep.
Come and taste, and then you won't hurt my feelings if you don't like anything of what you're tasting.
Right.
And it's surprising what they end up, because one thing that I have been raised to not be and my mother was insistent upon, don't be typical.
Be ordinary.
Not even fucking ordinary.
Oh my goodness. Oh man.
What did you think about part 2? There are some good questions and answers and comments in this episode. Next week, we will conclude part 3 of Don and Alphonse episode, and then the following week, we will be concluding the Hill Country edition of We Know Texas Vino. We are also coming up onto our 100th episode, which we got something pretty amazing coming up for that. So stay tuned. So cheers.